Hello and welcome. We're starting up a new game today, Strategic Command WWI Cold Arms. This is the second attempt at recording the first episode of the run. Part of the way through the first episode, in the first attempt of recording it, I realized that certain important pop-ups weren't showing. So we've changed how we're doing the display capture here to get the game captured correctly. This time it should work. If you're a new viewer to the channel, I am streaming this live to Twitch. Twitch will actually have the original version of that first capture, but that's only going to be for 14 days there. I'm not going to retain all of that. And then I'm going to recording this locally for upload to YouTube under the username Wilcol100. So I stream this live to Twitch under the username Wilcol, upload on YouTube under Wilcol100. Today we're going to be doing Strategic Command Cold Arms campaign as the Central Powers. I do have the DLC, so you can see that I have Emperor's Terminal DLC, which is why we got a different splash screen here on the main loading page. We're going to, as I said, we're going to do the Cold Arms campaign. Victory in this campaign as the Central Powers requires us to get 2 of the 3 to surrender, so France, Russia, UK. Either surrender or get the national morale below 1%, which effectively causes them to surrender. Surrendering them would require us to occupy their capitals. I think Russia might technically have 2 capitals for that purposes, but occupy all their capitals. Or reduce the national morale below 1%. Because this is World War I, which is pretty static of a fight back and forth, we're likely to do the latter rather than the former. For minor victory, as the Central Powers is the side we're going to do, for the end of game, we need to acquire Berlin, Vienna, Constantinople, Paris, and Verdun, and hold them till the end date. We start with 3 of those, so it's Berlin, Vienna, and Constantinople we start with. Paris and Verdun are obviously controlled by the French. So to get a major victory, we need to get two of the 3 powers to surrender. To get a minor victory, we need to take things from the French. If we're in a situation where neither side wins, that's technically there's a 5th state of victory in here, which is neither side wins. That's probably unlikely to happen. For the other side to win their major victory, they have to get the Germans to surrender or get the national morale drop below 1%. Again, they're probably going to do the latter, not the former. Because obviously occupying Berlin in World War I would have been very, very hard to do. And as the player, I'm not going to screw up enough that they can occupy Berlin. They're probably... I'm probably good enough at playing that they're not going to get a major victory. For their minor victory, the Entente needs to hold London, Paris, Verdun, and Cairo. Notably, they control all those at start. So if we can't take anything from them, they will, by default, win the minor victory. Although we will probably find a way to occupy either Verdun or Cairo, which will probably make it so the AI is not going to win. The question is, are we going to win? Which would be reasonably hard, maybe reasonably hard to do, because you'll notice for us to win, we either need to get the UK or France to surrender, or we need to occupy Paris. Paris might be a little hard, but I've played this once all the way through over the recent family vacation I had, which put a break in the channel, and I was able to win a Entente, or excuse me, win a Central Power victory during that break. So this is the campaign we're going to play. We're going to be playing as Central Powers on the intermediate difficulty. I think it is probably possible that you could turn the difficulty up if you know what you're doing, and probably still beat the AI. But no, we're just going to say it's sort of standard difficulty in the Central Powers. Sort of default settings, except with the 3D units off. I like the NATO tags, national colors off. And that's it. I think everything else is default. The load in here shouldn't take too long. We start off with the deployment phase. As it says, deploy your army's victory. Most of our army is now mobilized, but some of our units remain to be deployed. The game, in sort of allowing you to game it a bit, is going to allow us the opportunity to pick and choose where we want to deploy certain units. Most of our army is now mobilized. We have some options. Twitch chat saying, "Hey, my apologies since I was out for a bit. Were you not just playing Strategic Command? You already victorious?" The first attempt to record this part didn't record right. So if you remember from Free Call where certain pop-ups weren't getting caught by the capturing method I was using, that happened with Strategic Command as well. So I decided to start over. So no, we weren't already victorious. We basically got a turn done and realized important things weren't showing. Like this wasn't showing. The strategic advice here wasn't showing. So I decided to restart. And obviously it's now showing. So yeah, it's going to give us some choices of where to play some units, whether we want to play them west, east. It's giving us some suggestions. And it's also telling us if we hit auto deploy, there's an auto deploy button. It'll basically deploy them in the historical locations, mostly on the western border. What I basically did last time is I think we put the artillery piece in sort of the historical location over here. I think I put Von Below over here as well. And then we put the rest of the forces in the east. Here we go. Not to say that these cavalry wouldn't be, depending on what you're doing in the west, these cavalry probably would be useful in the west because they are veteran cavalry. So that's our deployment phase complete. We get our first proper turn, which is going to give us some more strategic advice. So here for the Austrian-Hungarians, our immediate priorities: a successful advance into Serbia, seizing Belgrade and Niš. We'll encourage Bulgaria to enter the war on our side. But we must also hold our eastern border. For Russian advances may entice Romania into entering the war against us. Romania is also an important food source, so a war with that country would lead to hunger and low morale at home. We must therefore advance into Serbia while holding our eastern border as securely as possible. Then here, as the Germans, it's giving some advice on how to delay the conflict with the UK. We're not going to delay the conflict with the UK. Basically saying, hey, if you violate the neutrality of a couple different powers, and most importantly Belgium, the UK gets involved. We're going to violate the neutrality of Belgium, so the UK is going to get involved. Here's some advice on the importance of the Netherlands. Basically, the Netherlands is providing us a way to smuggle resources past the British blockade. As such, the Imperial Germanic war economy implies on goods imported from neutral Netherlands. It is therefore vital that we keep the Dutch friendly with us, because obviously they're not going to help with the smuggling if they're not neutral. And we also need to keep them out of the war. If we make them too friendly, they'll join the war on our side and the smuggling won't work. If either of those fail, we basically get a hunger balance every turn to national morale for not being able to smuggle stuff through the blockade. Okay. So that is the initial state. I suppose I can do this a little bit differently. We'll start off with war maps here. We'll zoom in. We are going to violate the Belgian neutrality, so we'll start with declaring war on Belgium. We're now at war with Belgium. So that causes the UK to join the Entente. And then we're going to start our advance in the west. Inch that person one step forward so they can see the French, so we don't get shot up from an ambush, French ambush. And we're mostly going to sneak our troops forward without fighting the French too much. Where we can, we're going to dig in. We want to put pressure on the French, but we don't necessarily want to trade with poor trade ratios. Like, I don't even want to trade one-to-one right now. in this early campaign, early bit of the campaign. Oh, you can get to Luxembourg. Go into Luxembourg. Okay. Do I have anyone that can? You can get that mine. Here we go. You can't dig in, but that's going to be fine. Let's start bombarding the... Oh, first, I did this the wrong way around. You want to recon Liege, because that makes your artillery a little bit more effective, and then you just start shelling the place with artillery. One of the reasons I deployed the half-strength artillery west instead of east is we should have a little bit more cohesive front lines over here in the west, so we're a little bit less likely to just have someone sneak through and try to kill the artillery piece. Okay, that was different from last time, probably better off. We actually scared and drove the enemy unit off. We kind of got 2 lucky rolls there. We were expected to take damage on these guys, we were expected to take damage on these guys, and we didn't take damage on either of them. 1 to 2 is a ratio I'll take, so we'll take a shot at the Belgian resistance there. So in some ways, this attack in the west is actually going a little bit better than it did last time. If you're watching on Twitch. Okay. And then we'll sneak these guys forward to provide better support bonuses. And that's basically the Western Front for the moment. Telling us we can attack there, but we take 3 damage as we do 0, but that's because that's Verdun, and Verdun is a fortress city, and they're dug in there. You can build trenches there, so build trenches with your last action point, just in case someone does sneak through to attack you, although I doubt the Verdun garrison is going to come out to attack us. So that's the west for the moment. Down in the Serbian border, we're going to start moving forward. Again, we want to be sort of trading efficiently against the people we're fighting for the moment. So we're basically going to move forward and sort of put pressure on the enemy by digging in their face. So if they try to counterattack us, they're going to suffer attacking into trenches. Where at the same time, we're going to try to wait till we get the prepared offensive bonus for attacking a person that's immediately adjacent to us. So that's basically the Serbian border. The Austrian-Hungarian Navy does participate in... the next turn, the French will start sending supplies to Serbia via sea route here, or may start sending supplies to Serbia via sea route here. We do want to interdict that route to interfere with the Serbians getting more resources. The Serbians are going to struggle because they don't necessarily have a lot of MPP and stopping our advance. If you do think back to the victory objectives we went over, you'll notice that we don't need to defeat Serbia to win the game. The reason we want to defeat Serbia, and this is a little bit spoilers for when the Austro-Hungarian or when the Ottomans come in, is to send supplies to the Ottomans. We need to send them via rail. So you can send supplies from Berlin to Vienna. So you can basically send supplies from Germany to Austria-Hungary. And then you can send supplies from Austria-Hungary to Constantinople. But that has to go by rail. So that's coming down the rail line, and you notice that's got to go through Serbia. So to send supplies to help the Ottomans, and you're going to want to send supplies to help the Ottomans, you need to take out the Serbians first. They're also the entire partially the entire reason the war started. So it would be kind of unthematic if you didn't have to take the Serbians out. And historically, I think they were the first of the Entente powers to actually be defeated. The Serbians were. So, part of the discussion that went on earlier where I was going over the announcement, talking about Bulgaria, so if we push it enough into Serbia, Bulgaria will join us, join the Central Powers. If we let the Russians push too far into Galatia, the Romanians will declare on Austria-Hungary. So we want to do our best to hold the Galatian territories. If any of the Galatian territory cities fall, we'll have a refugee event. We'd ideally like to not suffer that event, but we're going to probably suffer that event. We also suffer a negative hunger event if the Galatian oil fields fall. So more important than maybe letting any of the Galatian cities fall is not letting the oil field fall. So we're deploying how we are. I am recognizing that Tarnopol here is almost certainly going to fall. We put the cavalry here to delay the fall of that tile, which will protect the oil fields. By then, the infantry corps here should be dug in enough that we won't lose the oil fields, is the plan. If you're a human player and you're playing on the other side, you probably want to take those oil fields, and you can probably be aggressive enough if you're a human player to take the oil fields on turn 1. Even if a human player on the other side were to do what we're doing here. Suspect. Otherwise, our main sort of objective here is to, with the German forces here, is to delay the Russian attack west. That's one of the reasons I deployed the extra forces here, is it's a little hard to do with your starting German forces. And if I'm going to operate forces over anyway, I probably deployed this a little bit differently than I did last time, but that's probably fine. If we're going to operate forces over anyway to plug the gaps in the defensive line, it probably makes sense to send them over earlier. Then you don't have to pay the extra cost for it. Yeah, probably actually want to do that. And because this is World War I, even in the East to some degree, we basically want to form a cohesive battle line and prevent it moving back and forth too much. Where the Russians, on the other hand, probably don't want to let you do that. The AI maybe isn't the best at stopping you from doing that, but we are going to try to stop them. Okay. I definitely deployed the troops a little bit different than I did last time. But yeah, that's basically how we're going to do the ground troops in the west, the south, and the east. We've got a little bit of Navy action we're going to do in the north, which is we're going to try to move some of our subs around. And so let's see if I can make less of a fool of myself setting up my mines this time. Here we go. Here we go. So that's going to be my protective sort of string of mines. Eventually I'm going to move most of the German Navy into this sort of area in here. And we're going to do reconnaissance to figure out we'll do some reconnaissance to see if the British Navy comes out to interfere with attempted new close blockade. In practice, we want to sort of conserve our navy and not have it destroyed with the British. If we just kind of go gallivanting off, the stronger British Navy is going to send us to the bottom. You see there's not much national morale objectives up here and in here. This has to do with the British naval blockade. So we got the close-in naval blockade. Well, say close-in. We got the North Sea naval blockade line. And we've got the Iceland... Scotland naval blockade line. I think this is also known as the far blockade, distant blockade. Yeah, northern and the distant. If the British put ships on these positions, it'll cause a national morale hit to us and give them. I think it's only a national morale hit to us. If we elect to unrestricted naval warfare, the ones over here, we get a national morale buff and they get a national morale malus. In practice, it depends upon what you're trying to do, how you want to play, right? So the British probably do want to blockade the Germans. The AI probably won't be super aggressive about it, but you probably want to be more aggressive. I believe it's a national morale hit per occupied tile. Of course, you're giving away your ship positions to the other side doing that, because the merchants that are being turned away will tell on you, basically. I believe the same thing the other way around, right? If you're blockading the national morale hits for unrestricted submarine warfare as the Germans, it'll tell the British where your ships are. There's 4 different areas. So there's the Irish Sea, the English Channel, the North Channel. I might be missing one of them, but there's 4 areas where and that's the Bristol Channel, so it's close in there. 4 different places where the Germans can do unrestricted naval warfare. For each place they're doing it, they get... And that's for the 4 areas, so they can only do it 4 times. They get a national morale buff. The national morale malus to the British is per tile. So when you're doing that, you have to kind of want to make a decision back and forth. Do you want to maximize the damage you're doing to the British national morale? Or do you want to maximize the national morale buff to yourself? All the while, we'll try not to lose your submarines, because losing your submarines is a national morale hit. And vice versa with the British doing their naval blockade. You're trying to decide, do you want to do damage to the to the German national morale? But at the same time, you don't want to necessarily risk your ships because they're worthwhile on national morale themselves. Sorry about that. Had a little bit of a cough. So I muted the mic, so hopefully no one else heard that. It's just me suffering. So at that point, I think we've got our first turn done here. The Ottomans are technically not in the war, although we did move around a little bit their troops. Mostly moving troops east to reinforce the Ottoman-Russian border. I moved a couple of the detachments west, because there's a couple points we want to make sure do not fall to the Allies or whatever in the west. But basically, the existing cores we're pushing east. So Luxembourg surrenders, gives us some MPP, 22 MPP. And we've got a decision here. So, Commander of the High Seas Fleet, Admiral von Ingrengold, our Medellumir division, whose flagship is the Goeben battlecruiser, is currently in the Mediterranean sailing towards Constantinople. It is recommended that the Goeben continue to Constantinople, will be taken into service with the Ottoman Navy and renamed the Yuvuz Sultan Selim. If you decide not to send Goeben on to Constantinople, then she will be instead sail to Pola in the Adriatic, while she will serve alongside the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Do we want to send it to the Ottomans, or do we want to send it to the Austro-Hungarians? If we send it to the Ottomans will move towards joining the Central Powers sooner, and that is kind of what we want to do. And honestly, I probably don't need more ships in the Austro-Hungarian Navy. The Austro-Hungarian Navy is going to suffer from port issues more if we put more ships in there. Another decision. This one is Chancellor Konrad von Holzendorf. General von Bo Emeril and the 4th and 7th Corps of our 2nd Army are currently en route to Novi Sad and Temensburg near the Serbian border, where they will deploy shortly to take part in the invasion of Serbia. However, deploying them may leave us insufficient forces to face the Russians, therefore it has been suggested that we instead deploy them to the Russian border. Unfortunately, sending them against the Russians will delay their arrival by several weeks. Would you like to send these units immediately to fight the Serbians, or send them to fight the Russians? And we are going to deploy them against the Serbians. I need more troops on the Serbian border. We should hopefully have enough to deal with the Russians, although the Russians will not be complete pushovers. French mobilization continues. Russian mobilization continues. Most notably, Russian mobilization right next to Galicia. Austro-Hungarian mobilization continues. France increases its arms production in the southwest. UK starts sending supplies to Russia. Here's the MPP that we got for the territory we controlled this turn. The Ottomans have not entered the war, so they're getting a reduced amount based on the degree that they favor our side. So they're only getting 17 because they're only 25% into the war at the moment. We didn't set it up for the first turn, and I'm probably going to delay right up until it tells us that reminds us that we can do it. We haven't sent any MPP from Germany to Austria-Hungary, although you could do that. So here comes the Russians, and various forces are getting reinforced. Here comes the Russians. They're probably going to either cause that cavalry to retreat or destroy that cavalry unit. But that will buy us time for holding the oil fields. Yeah, cause the cavalry retreat. And that probably has bought us enough time to hold the oil fields, although that was a little sooner than I was expecting. Expecting the cavalry to hold out a little bit longer. But there is some variance in what the AI manages to do, so... Arrival of 1,000 refugees from Galicia spreads fear through Austria-Hungary. So this is because we lost a city in Galicia. UK sees this as the Ottoman dreadnought Sultan Osman I. So the Ottomans, instead of receiving this dreadnought, the British have decided to take it, which of course pushes the Ottomans farther towards the Central Powers. I think it's technically a dreadnought that the Ottomans had ordered from the British. So obviously it doesn't get delivered if the British decide not to send it. Fear of German raiders upsets trade from the British Empire. So, town has been captured, UK seizes, just a repeat of various things. Okay. National morale, 1,000 refugees from Galicia spread through Austria-Hungary. Chief of the General Staff, Helmut von Moltke. Given our weakness in East Prussia, we could greatly strengthen our position there by bringing Paul von Hindenburg out of retirement and giving him field command there. To assist him in his duties, Erich Ludendorff can serve as Chief of Staff. Providing Hindenburg and Ludendorff with the necessary logistical support will cost us 200 MPP at 50 MPPs a turn for 4 turns. Would you like to appoint von Hindenburg to field command at Marienburg in Eastern Prussia? Do you have the directive German military strategy until the end of the war? Yeah. Paul von Hindenburg had retired from the army in 1911 after 45 years of service. Being called out of retirement at the start of the war, he defeated the Second Army, Samensov's Second Army at Tannenberg, and then von Rennenkampf's First Army in the Maris Lakes. His successors in the east led him to replacing von Falkenhayn as chief of the General Staff the following year, with Ludendorff taking on the role of the first Quartermaster General of the General Staff. Together, they directed German military strategy until the end of the war. So yeah, we are gonna deploy this guy. Yes, it's gonna cost us MPV. I think we can stomach it. Von Hindenburg comes out of retirement to command in East Prussia. Chancellor Konrad von Holzendorf. Huge numbers of refugees have fled from the areas of the fighting, and the need to feed, clothe, and house them is placing huge burden on Emperor's economy and infrastructure. If we are to prevent any further impact on our national morale, it would be wise to invest in caring for the refugees. Sort of in a gameplay status, we have already suffered 2,000 national morale hit for having any city in Galicia occupied, due to the refugees being sent forth. We can either pay 50 MPP to avoid an additional 2,000 points, or we can say no and we'll lose 2,000 points. I think that's how that works. In this case, we'd happily pay 50 MPP for 2,000 points, so we'll hit yes here. Providing care for refugees increases Austria-Hungarian national morale, so is good. National morale-wise, can I see it on this map? My tooltips are maybe not popping super well. We can go in the reports and see it in the reports easier. So we can go in the graphs. National morale-wise, the Ottomans aren't in the war. Austria-Hungary did dip down. Well, I suppose technically we take a 2,000 hit from the refugees. If we pay for it, we get 2,000 back. If we didn't pay for it, we'd be down an additional 2,000. So it's a 4,000 swing. That makes it even more worthwhile. We're basically haven't lost anything as the Germans, so the Germans are at status. British are a little bit unhappy because of the loss of the Belgian unit. The French, sort of similar. And everyone else is pretty static. Close this. Okay. And we do want to push our units forward. And where possible, we want to make sure that they can dig in if at all possible, so as to preclude further follow-up attacks from the enemy. It's not necessarily outright stated, but Montenegro did join Serbia at the onset of the war, so we are at war with Montenegro as well. 2 to 3, not the best odds, but we're going to take it. Run recon. Ooh, did not quite destroy the enemy there. Although we will take their position. Okay, as you can see, there is this supply line. I am going to do a little bit of reconnaissance there. And then we are going to drop a mine on the route. We are going to go ahead and reinforce our sub here. And then we're going to put the sub on the convoy route to interdict it for future turns. We're going to reinforce the cavalry unit, so it may hopefully be ready for additional combat in the future. wasn't able to entrench that guy there. That's... hindsight, I should probably put him in the city and do the other round, but that'll be fine. It'll probably be fine. We've got our guys entrenched. We do have a slight weakness, technically, from that location for the attacks into that hex, but that'll probably be fine. Okay, most of the Eastern Front is basically going to stay where they are. We're just going to look for good attacks. Like a 2v4 is good. We'll take that. And 2v3 is reasonable. Otherwise, we're just going to stay where we are. Keep that nice and simple. In the west, which is where most of the action is really going to be happening, we are going to continue to push forward where possible. One v3 we'll take. We are going to want to push them out of Brussels, but I don't necessarily want to fight too hard. Well, I don't want to trip my forces down too much before fighting really starts. Okay, so we can get there. Okay, take them out of Brussels. Massive move you to Brussels. Due to the necessity being quick, we are going to take the 2v3 there. I don't suppose I have enough movement in the artillery? I do. Okay. Actually, I probably do want to keep one person here as a reserve. Oh, I forgot to do the reconnaissance run with the line again. Whoops. And there we go. We technically do have an attack here, but I'm not going to take a 2v1 this early. And then I think I will take the step forward here. Though we're not going to attack from this position. We'll push you into the hill right behind it. Okay. So that's the Western Front for the moment. Suppose if I thought ahead, I could have done some reconnaissance with the plane there. Not going to move too much with the east. The subs we're still going to work on deploying, although make sure not to sail them right over my own mines. I'm going to send you off, probably to interdict the Russian UK supply lines. Do I want to deploy more stuff west, fleet-wise? Or I forgot these guys want to keep walking. Although I might decide to move those guys faster by operating them. Let's reinforce these. Damaged. Oop, not what I want to do. That's what I want. Oh, you can be upgraded to +1. Yeah, we'll take that. Okay, before I spend too much as the Germans, let's grab a couple of very important researches. We want to start on trench warfare. So we're going to spend 50 as trench warfare. We're going to also want to start on infantry warfare. The game starts us with 1 in industry tech, 1 in artillery tech, 1 in airship development. We're not going to reclaim the chits in any of those. If it didn't start us with 1 in artillery, I would probably put 1 in artillery. This is because every turn you have a chance of breakthroughs, which accelerate your rate of tech. Artillery 1 in particular is a very valuable tech for us, because it's going to be what we need to de-entrench people in entrenched positions. Do those ones as well. There we go. I'm gonna hold off on doing the planes. I don't think I necessarily need the planes improved. Let's also think about research for the Austro-Hungarians. They don't quite have enough to pick up infantry weapons. They do have enough to pick up trench warfare, so we'll take up the first trench war. And looking at the time, I think this is actually a good place to put a part break in. So we will be back with another part for you on YouTube tomorrow. If you're watching on Twitch, feel free to hang around. I'm going to try to record one more part after a short break. So until the next part, wish you all the best of luck and a good time. Catch you all in the next part, and bye for now.